Part 74. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 764. The meeting broke up quickly, but after everyone's projections were extinguished, one person stayed. The third Queen Demeter. She is one of the crew members that K-Lan has interacted with more often, but in K-Ian's heart, she cannot be regarded as a person who can be 100% trusted. There is her shadow behind the mimetic infection incident. This seemingly dignified person, a calm lady, she is an out-and-out radical at heart. Your Excellency Demeter, do you have something to talk to me alone? K-Lan stood up and walked towards her virtual projection. If the vote remains tied, the existence of the crew association will be meaningless. We will become like the administrative agencies of the old era, full of factional struggles and mutual constraints. Everyone is planning for their own selfish interests, and the efficiency of work and decision-making will be inefficient. It's dark and unclear. If this continues, human civilization will inevitably decline, Demeter said to K-Lan seriously. These words sound a bit like an Iron Lady. K-Lan nodded in agreement and asked, then what do you decide to do? The balance has to be tipped, Demeter said. If voting doesn't solve the problem, then we solve the people who vote. Address, the people who voted. As long as there is one less member of the opposition camp, even if the fool comes down again, it will be impossible to even out the votes. Hearing Demeter say such words, K-Ian's eyes couldn't help but beat violently. Does she mean to commit assassination? Killing an opposition member of the undead crew? Pan's death caused an imbalance between the two camps, and K-Ian's addition and the fool's fate brought the balance back again, and now, Demeter actually plans to break the balance again by means of assassination. If you want to break the deadlock, you must use thunderous means, Demeter said seriously. What do you call thunderous tactics? K-Lan couldn't help but complain in her heart. Assassinate a member of the opposition and then decide the outcome through voting? Is this woman brainless? Or is she completely crazy? Does she think that when her side breaks the rules to make the rules beneficial to her, the other party will continue to follow the rules stupidly? Has she considered the consequences of doing so? If another member of the Immortal Crew Association dies from assassination, there is a high probability that it will lead to an open rupture between the members of the two factions. The Ark will instantly fall into the abyss of civil war. The damage caused by the civil war is far beyond what one Alexander can do. In contrast, no matter who wins in the end, human civilization will eventually decline in a very short period of time. Taking a step back, even if the other party does not choose to break up with them directly, then we can assassinate members of the opposition team, and the opposition team can also assassinate members of K-Lan and his camp. I will kill one of you, and you will kill one of me. Does it make sense to do this? The real method of thunder should be to find out which of the villains are the moles, and then directly uproot all the moles before the opponent can react, eliminate all signs of resistance, and let the moles follow up all the plans were aborted. This is called thunderous means. As for Demeter's plan, to say that she is too small is to flatter her. K-Lan can only use two words to describe her: reckless and stupid. I don't think this is a good idea, K-Lan said. Seeing that they were all allies in the same camp, he still saved some face for Demeter and didn't say so harshly directly. Things that break the rules of the game will only make the organization of the undead crew exist in name only. Is this a situation you want to see? K-Lan asked her. But they were the first to break the rules, Demeter retorted. Whether it was colluding with the heretical sect or secretly assassinating Pan, we are already passive now. If we can't take the initiative early, right, then our situation will only get worse. It's right that you want to take back the initiative, but can you answer a few questions first? K-Lan stared closely at Demeter's virtual projection eyes and asked word by word, what will the undead crew do? Why send special forces to blow up the engine wreckage built all over Alpha Planet? What is the original purpose of these engine wreckage? Yes, Alpha civilization, how many secrets do you still hide and haven't told me? There was a flash of dodge in Demeter's eyes. Although it was only a very short moment, it was still captured by Kaylan. The virtual projection is different from the cyborg. The projection program can perfectly reflect the user's emotional fluctuations. Subtle changes, including expressions, eyes, and body movements. The reason for this setting is because the members of the undead crew once believed that they should be honest with each other, but as time goes by, they all gradually learned their own secrets, and this projection device was increasingly disliked by the members of the crew association. This is also the main reason why most people have a poker face during the voting meeting and can't wait to turn off the projection after the voting is over. The older they get, the thicker the masks they wear on their faces, and the stronger the barriers between them. After getting used to the mask, taking it off even for a moment will make them feel uncomfortable. Pathetic. This was Ian's evaluation of them. They want to portray themselves as a tall, lofty god with no sorrow or joy, but under the golden and gorgeous shell of the god, there is rancid blood called selfish desire and conspiracy. Kaylan never regarded himself as a member of the Yes faction. Before he figured out the secrets, he would not tie himself to any chariot. He also knew very well that between Demeter and the others, so they are willing to help themselves just because they still have value to them. A pure relationship between use and being used. I can't tell you these things. Demeter finally shook her head. You are a symbiote, and you have been watched by him. Your body and consciousness have been extremely damaged. Deep erosion. If those secrets are known again at this time, there is a high probability that his attention will be drawn again. Even if I glance at you with my peripheral vision, your erosion level may instantly exceed the safety threshold. How can we check the progress of erosion? Kaylan asked. There are no specific standards, we can only rely on past experience to evaluate, Demeter replied. What will happen if the safety threshold you say is exceeded? I don't know. Demeter shook her head slowly. You don't know? Are you kidding? Kaylan was a little stunned. His first reaction was that the other party didn't want to tell him the truth, but judging from the micro-expression of Demeter's virtual projection, she seemed to be telling the truth. There are many situations when the erosion level exceeds the safety threshold, and there are no rules to follow, Demeter explained. Some people will die suddenly, some people will become monsters like erosion seeds and fusion bodies, some people have reactions similar to those of the Black Bishop's sacrificial ceremony. The most special case in the record is a symbiote. Yes, it is the same kind as you and Leininger, Prophet. He was the first person after his body matured. 47 minutes past the safety threshold of erosion, and the whole person instantly exploded into a ball of blood mist, but after 2 seconds, he quickly returned to his human form. During this gap, he could even call out to the experimenter for help. But soon he turned into blood mist again. This cycle was repeated a total of 258 times, and when he exploded into blood mist for the 259th time, he could never return to his human form. Sounds like a scary ghost story. Kaylan gave a very pertinent evaluation. Except for you and Leininger, the direct or indirect cause of death of all other symbionts is that the degree of erosion exceeds the safety threshold. We name this situation super erosion. The specific state of each super erosion is there are big discrepancies and only a small amount of duplication. In other words, super eclipse is equivalent to opening a blind box, and it is also a blind box with an undisclosed prize pool. Right? Kaylan imitated an old dog and rubbed the stubble on his chin, frowning said. You can understand that. Well, since Leininger and I have become the only ones to survive among this group of symbiotes, maybe that means we are special. Kaylan originally wanted to say that he was the chosen one, but in the end, because being thin-skinned, I didn't say anything. You are just like other symbionts. You have nothing special. You are just lucky. Demeter glanced at him and said angrily, actually, during the East 9th District incident, you used it for the first time. During the Holy Word, there were already 3 warships aiming their main guns at you at an altitude of 20,000 meters. Once you enter the super erosion state, the plasma cannons will clear you out as soon as possible. It seems that my life has always been under your surveillance. Although he had already guessed it, he was still a little unhappy after hearing Demeter say it himself. Of course, Demeter admitted readily. Then my fiancé and I, were you watching when we were doing that? Demeter did not answer the question directly, but instead said in another way, we are always monitoring Zofia Soma's physical condition. If she develops pregnancy reactions, we will take emergency measures. Emergency measures. Are you going to put explosive anklets on my fiancé's feet? Ian's tone contained a hint of anger. If Demeter was using a biochemical body instead of a virtual projection, Lan would have probably already hold each other's collar. The backstage of Dr. Renee is Demeter. This is what Pan told Lan in the underground ice house. You don't want your fiancée to be pregnant for 10 months and give birth to a monster, right? Demeter said calmly. In your understanding, you have always been a member of the human race, which is good. But you can't ignore the fact that there are huge differences between your genes and those of normal humans, and we can't even rule out the possibility of reproductive isolation between you and humans. What about the mimetic infection incident? That incident was Smith's negligence. I only gave him a certain degree of authority and did not allow him to directly fuse your clone cells with the cells of the seed of erosion. It was his eagerness for success that led to the disaster. Lan sneered, haha, you are so good at throwing the blame away. I'm not throwing the blame away, I'm just stating the facts. And I've also assumed my responsibilities. For specific details, you can check the process records of the accountability process that the crew launched against me not long ago, Demeter said. Can't you try it? I mean, Super Eclipse. Lan stopped continuing the topic. Perhaps, that insignificant amount of information will not attract his attention. As a member of the undead crew, we can't take this risk. What if I voluntarily give up my status as a member of the undead crew? That's not okay. First of all, if you are not a member of the undead crew, you are not qualified to know those secrets. Secondly, you are the last symbiont left in the world. Only by living can you create more for human civilization. Of great value, using your life to conduct such a risky and meaningless experiment, this resolution will not be passed. I don't even have the power to commit suicide, do I? Yes. P.S. The descriptions of fusion bodies in recent chapters, many places had to be revised due to suspected bloody descriptions, and these revised places have been completely changed. Although the original description is indeed very bloody and very forbidden, after the harmonization, it always has a dry feeling when reading, and the picture quality is also weakened a lot, but I really can't help it. After all, the starting point is an all-age platform, and our country there has never been a clear grading system in the field of cultural creation, and all works must be based on all-age standards. After all, we have to protect the flowers of our motherland, right? If you want to read the original version, my suggestion is to read it as soon as it is updated, otherwise it will probably be the harmonious version after 2 days. As for readers who are used to reading books, then I have no choice. But according to the recommendation of the current starting point system, the proportion of pursuing reading is too high. I beg you, please don't support it or try not to support it. It's too easy to support books now, especially the new books written by small authors like me. If you stop reading, basically there will be no recommended resources. Also, I will never write a novel containing Thulhu elements in the future. The intensity of review is really unbearable. Maybe one day the entire book will be gone. Well, writing a book is not easy, the author sighed. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 765. After finishing the conversation with Demeter, Lan turned around and headed to the Black Well. Since the undead crew members would be unwilling to tell themselves those secrets, the worst possible solution would be to use a clumsy method, looking for a needle in a haystack to search for archives from those years that might be involved in these events, mobilizing so many special forces and detonating them. The sound caused by the small hydrogen bomb and the engine explosion, there are so many traces, it is impossible for the undead crew to erase them completely. There will always be some clues left in those black hard drives. Kaylan stayed in the black well for 5 days. I don't know if it was just his luck, but he actually found a clue by searching for a needle in a haystack, and it was a very crucial clue. In the core of the grey mist forest, there is also an engine wreckage. The number given to it by the undead crew is No. 63. In 2 years, there were a total of 4 special teams like the 776 elite troops were sent to carry out the task of blowing up the wreckage site of engine No. 63, but no troops were able to successfully cross the grey fog forest. Of course, this is purely K.Ian's personal speculation that no one of the troops could successfully pass through the grey mist forest. According to actual records, these 4 troops lost contact shortly after entering the grey mist forest. They neither wanted to send any messages to the outside world nor did they send any messages to the outside world. People come out of the forest alive, not even corpses. Several transfer stations and military bases set up at the border of the grey fog forest did not detect any vibrations in the forest. In other words, none of the small hydrogen bombs carried by these 4 troops was detonated. Due to the confidentiality of the mission, ARC did not organize a large force to enter the grey fog forest for search and rescue. Instead, after the 4th Special Team lost contact, it dispatched a heavy cruiser, a frigate, and 3 ships to the grey fog forest. A special operations fleet composed of high-mobility support ships. But just as this fleet crossed the red line, it was attacked by a large number of flying indigenous creatures. The frigate and a high-mobility support ship crashed in the forest. The heavy cruiser and the remaining 2 high-mobility support ships were severely damaged and were unable to survive. Do not exit the airspace of the grey mist forest. Speaking of the red line, I have to focus on the grey mist forest, a very special area on Alpha Planet. Although the grey mist forest is not considered a relic of the Alpha civilization, in the eyes of all soldiers, mercenaries, and relic hunters, this place is no less dangerous than an S-relic. However, they are referring to areas within the red line. The red line refers to a danger warning line 5 kilometers after entering the grey fog forest. The area beyond the red line is not very dangerous. Experts from the institute collect samples and do various things in this area. You don't even need to carry many guards during the experiment, but once you cross the red line, the situation is different. In the area behind the red line, the danger level will increase significantly every 50 meters deep. Everything here, even the plants and the land under your feet, are deeply hostile to outsiders. According to official records, only 1 expedition team, all composed of high-level enhanced people and modified people, successfully retreated after crossing the red line 400 meters, but even so, they also showed up for nearly a third of the time. 2. Attrition. In the 14th year of the new era, an armored force retreated from the frontal battlefield and entered the grey mist forest, pursued by indigenous creatures, about 1,500 people, plus nearly 100 tanks and almost 50 vehicles. The fearless warrior armors all disappeared silently into this man-eating forest. More than 90% of the trees in the grey fog forest are woody indigenous plants called fog perches, but the most troublesome thing is another kind of indigenous plant that is parasitic on these fog perches. Kirito. When the fog vines are breathing, they will release a grey mist. The mist released by countless fog vines are connected together to form a mist that lasts all year round. This mist can greatly obscure the field of vision, while also it contains a strong neurotoxin. Except for those creatures that live in the grey fog forest all year round and whose bodies have developed resistance to the toxin, outside creatures entering the fog without protective measures will be poisoned in a short time. The deeper you enter the forest, the heavier the fog and the higher the concentration of toxins. Especially after the red line, the fog concentration will rapidly increase geometrically. The main means used by people to determine the exact location of the red line, in addition to distance, is to rely on observe the changes in fog concentration. Take humans as an example. Suppose a strong male soldier, who has not undergone intensive surgery or received toxin resistance modification, moves in an area outside the red line without wearing a gas mask or taking antivenom agents. He would feel seriously unwell in 2 hours, and fall into coma in 4 hours, even if he was taken out of the gray mist forest at this time. If he did not receive timely treatment, he would die of organ failure within 48 hours. In the area within the red line, the time for toxins to accumulate to a fatal level is shortened to 6 minutes. As for going from coma to death, it only takes half an hour. Another point is visibility. Beyond the red line, the visibility in the gray fog is about 10 to 15 meters, but as soon as you cross the red line, the visibility quickly drops to within 5 meters. The further you go, the lower the visibility. The expedition team even recorded the description of being unable to see even the 5 fingers of their hand in their records. The remaining 1/3 of them were able to come back alive thanks to several powerful blowers, which blew away the nearby gray fog, allowing the expedition members to find their way back. However, the gray fog is very sticky, and the limit distance that the blower can blow is less than 30 meters, this is only 400 meters away from the red line, and the center of the gray fog forest must be at least 50 kilometers away from the red line. Miles and above. Although the gray fog is very sticky, its density is not high at all. They can rise hundreds of meters into the air, shrouding the entire forest below. In the center of the forest, the height of the gray fog is even over 1,000 meters, from a distance, it looks like a gray mountain peak. As for the chaotic magnetic field and radio interference, at least 1/5 of the surface of Alpha Star has such characteristics, and the area where the gray mist forest is located happens to be among these 1/5. Someone once thought about using napalm to open a corridor for passage in the gray fog forest, but after actual operation, they found that fog perches and fog vines are extremely fire resistant, and have extremely strong resistance. The flammable gray mist squeezes out most of the air in the forest. With a severe lack of oxygen, it is difficult for fires to burn. The wood of the mist perch is extremely dense, as hard as iron, and has an ignition point between 1500 and 1700 degrees. This would have been a good material. However, these woods are extremely difficult to process, difficult to cut, and cannot be smelted. Completely inferior to various alloy materials. There are no ruins, low resource value, and the level of danger is comparable to S-class ruins, except for experts and scholars who are interested in forest ecology. Almost no one is willing to come to this place. Naturally, this forest has gradually disappeared from the public consciousness. With insight, Kaylan tried to search for relevant information about the gray mist forest on the public internet, but apart from a small number of exploration records in areas outside the red line, there was very little information that could be found, and among this information, the ones that appeared most frequently the words are maze, red line, extreme danger and eat people without spitting out bones. Like the ruins of the ancient Copper City, the gray mist forest is also a forgotten place. As for how the undead crew members learned that there was an engine wreckage in the core of the gray mist forest, Kaylan had no idea. According to his judgment, it was most likely through learning from other ruins or other engine wreckage. It was deduced from the clues obtained in, after all, until now, the core area of the gray mist forest is still the same as the abyss at the bottom of the sea, a mysterious restricted area that has not been visited by humans. In fact, in Ian's view, there is no need for the undead crew to send people to blow up the engine wreckage hidden deep in the core of the gray mist forest. If they are trying to cover up something, the gray mist forest can definitely be considered it is an excellent barrier. No one can pass through the gray fog forest, and no one can see the engine wreckage hidden in the gray fog. Perhaps it was for this reason that after the 4th Special Team lost contact and the Special Operations Fleet failed, the undead crew shelved their plan to blow up the wreck of Engine No. 63. If there is an Alpha man left inside this engine wreckage. When he thought of this, Ian's breathing became rapid. He still remembers what the Alpha man who was killed by the 776 Special Forces team said before his death in the Mutuo video. "I'm not stopping you. I know what your leaders are doing, they are right, the truth cannot be made public, otherwise, everything will fall into chaos. Because of the paradox, most of us disappeared. A small number of survivors have left this planet. At least a handful of individuals like me have stayed, wanting to witness some things and trying to communicate with you. But unfortunately, there is no symbiont among you. It seems that I can't communicate with you. There is no symbiote." These were the last words of the Alpha before his death. It is precisely because no one in the 776 Special Team can understand the language of the Alpha civilization, they can't even hear the voice of the other party. So they mistook the Alpha man for trying to stop their mission and shot him dead. But as a symbiote, Kaylan knew very well that the other party was not only not hostile, but even wanted to take the initiative to communicate with humans. It probably represents the will of the entire Alpha civilization. Assuming that Kaylan can find a living Alpha man in the wreckage site of Engine No. 63, all the problems that trouble him will be solved. But before that, there was a question before Kaylan: how could he pass through the grey mist forest? The area within the red line is a restricted area for humans. The expedition team only crossed the red line by 400 meters and completely lost its direction. The distance between the core area and the red line was at least 100 meters deep into the limit of the expedition team. More than times. The armored troops of 1,500 people were swallowed up by this forest, and the heavy cruiser that could instantly kill the Fusion Plus was severely damaged and had to return without success. These cases all illustrate the dangers of the grey fog forest among those on the internet. The description is not an exaggeration. Even if Kaylan could assemble as large a force as he did when attacking the ruins of the Bronze City, there would probably be nothing he could do against this forest. Hundreds of thousands of people sounds like a lot, and if they are gathered into a neat square formation on the plain, it will look very spectacular. But if so many people are scattered in a vast forest with a depth of more than 100 kilometers, it will look like, if a 500-gram bag of edible salt is poured into a freshwater lake covering an area of several hectares, the salinity of the lake water will not change at all. Theoretically speaking, the best way to operate is to set fire to the mountain. Of course, you cannot use conventional methods such as napalm bombs, otherwise even if you use up all the Ark's inventory, you will only be able to open up a very small open space. To burn, you must burn a big one. For example, directly airdropping large-yield nuclear weapons, using plasma cannons to continuously bombard forest areas, etc. Doing so would indeed eradicate the entire forest from the surface of planet Alpha, but it would also destroy the engine wreckage hidden in the deep forest and kill the Alpha man who might be staying in the engine wreckage. What's more, the undead crew may or may not approve Ian's plan. If they agree to transfer the command of the fleet to Kaylan, Kaylan won't even use the Ark fleet, he only needs to drive Yagonactor directly, just crash into the mountain peak made of grey mist. With the thickness of Yagonactor's armor, those flying indigenous creatures cannot pose any threat to it at all. P.S. I'm not in a good state lately. I'm always feeling weak, groggy, dizzy, and nauseous. I don't know if it's because of the high temperature, heat stroke or poisoning. The epidemic is over recently, and a factory in a nearby industrial area has started to secretly discharge poison in the middle of the night. There is industrial waste gas, and I have been woken up in the middle of the night with the windows open several times at night. Even if I want to report it, I can't find any evidence. Of course, there is also the worst possibility that I don't want to think about, which is white brain. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's go to the hospital during the day tomorrow. I just had a blood draw 2 weeks ago and all the indicators were very good. The result is that I started to feel uncomfortable after smelling the smell of burning plastic in the middle of the night for the past few days. Already. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chen-Mi-san. Chapter 766. Under the deliberate obstruction of other members of the undead crew, many of K-Ian's plans are actually as difficult to implement as piloting a Gunak Toll. Although he now possesses power that is difficult for ordinary people to achieve, this power will also be being constrained by other members of the crew association. Since they are unwilling to tell themselves the secrets related to Alpha civilization and Alpha people, they naturally will not support themselves in mobilizing a large amount of resources to find relevant clues. If K-Lan wants to have his own way, he can't rely on the resources from the Undead Crew Association. The only feasible plan at present is to form an expedition team that is strong enough, even strong enough to be described as perverted, and hike through the grey mist forest. This plan can be said to be very risky. In the eyes of others, it is basically the same as seeking death. Even an army of thousands of people cannot pass through the grey mist forest. Why should an expedition team of about 10 people dare to head to the heart of the forest? You know, the expedition team that crossed the red line 400 meters, each of their waists were connected with high-strength cables, but even so, 2/3 of them disappeared out of sight. Inside the 5-finger-thick fog. K-Ian's greatest confidence comes from Ze Luo, a bad guy who has the ability to control time and space. No matter how weird and dangerous the grey mist forest is, it still needs to abide by the basic physical laws of the universe, and Ze Luo is an existence that can break this law. Coupled with Valentina's blasphemer Mecha and 33, the immortal cultivator who can wield a sword, the combat effectiveness of their team is no less than that of the 1,500-man armored force. If the two sides met on the plains, K-Lan and the others could even kill the 1,500 people on the opposite side without any damage. All it takes is one plasma cannon blast from the blasphemer, or a wave of his hand from Ze Luo, and the battle is over. The next day, K-Lan disclosed the plan to everyone in the hunting god hunting group. Ze Luo, Asano Akira, and Valentina agreed to K-Ian's proposal without any hesitation, while the rest fell into a brief silence. This eerie silence lasted for a full half-minute before it was broken with the sound of the can's ring being pulled open and the fizzy alcoholic beverage making a poof sound. The hound took a hard sip of the cold beer in his hand, stared at K-Lan, and said slowly, "In the core of the grey mist forest, there is an engine wreckage that the undead crew tried to blow up but failed to blow up. There is a living alpha human who is willing to communicate with humans living in this engine wreckage. Are you sure?" "I can't be completely sure," K-Lan answered truthfully. Everything was just his speculation, and he couldn't even produce a reliable piece of evidence. "K-Lan, are you getting a little carried away? Let's ignore the conspiracy of those guys in the undead crew, the degree of erosion and super corrosion, and let's just discuss the matter." Hound grabbed the remote control on the table and pressed it. Alpha, the holographic projection of the star, appeared in the center of the office. Then with a move of his right hand, the virtual sphere began to rotate, and the direct observation angle was adjusted to directly above the grey fog forest. The virtual projected planet disappeared and was replaced by an aerial view of the grey fog forest taken at an altitude of tens of thousands of meters. Looking from the air, it is impossible to tell that this area is one piece, and everything within sight is completely obscured by thick grey fog. There are two completely grey areas on the surface of planet Alpha. One is a mortar swamp bordering the molten mine area, the Western Plains and the Hell Corridor. The other is located on the northeast side of the Great Basin at the 30th parallel north latitude. The Grey Fog Forest. The former is a treasure land with the most complex ecological environment on planet Alpha and is called a unique natural research site by biological and environmental scholars, while the latter is a forbidden area of death that has never been penetrated by human footprints. First of all, you said that there is an engine wreckage in the core area of the Grey Mist Forest. This news comes from the internal mission records of the undead crew. Like the 776 Special Forces team, there is no trace in the military archives. Then I assume this news is reliable, Hound said while drawing a circle with red handwriting in the center of the grey fog. But you said that there may be a living Alpha man left in the engine wreckage, but this is open to question. The hound's heels tapped lightly on the floor, and the hard rubber soles of the military boots collided with the solid wood floor, making a loud sound. There was a tap-tat sound. You can infer this information from the mission records of the 776 Special Forces team. Then, we have to face three problems. The hound raised a finger. First, assuming that there is really an engine wreckage in the middle of the forest, is there really a remnant of the Alpha civilization left in this engine wreckage? If the video you saw was not deleted and the content you recounted was not omitted, the surviving Alpha man encountered by the 776 Special Forces team only said that a very small number of individuals remained. But it doesn't say that there is a guy like it left behind in every engine wreckage like this. Second, the hound raised another finger. Even if there are indeed remnants of the Alpha civilization in the engine wreckage in the Grey Fog Forest, we are completely unsure whether it is still alive. The last question, the hound raised a third finger. It is also the most important question. How can you be sure that this remnant of Alpha civilization is still willing to communicate with humans? In these long years, anyone can. The thoughts of living things are likely to change, not to mention. The hound paused and said in an aggravated tone, the undead crew has blown up dozens of engine wrecks like this, which also means that the special forces they sent have slaughtered many people like that Alpha who were left trying to. When the remnants who communicate with us humans face a group of barbarians from a lower civilization who cannot communicate and only know killing and destruction, do you think the remaining Alpha remnants will still maintain such a friendly attitude? This is also what I'm worried about. Yvonne took over the words and said, if the Alpha remnants in this engine wreckage are hostile to humans, or even hateful, we have no leverage to compete with them. Even if we can get through the Grey Fog Forest by luck, we may not be able to walk out of the wreckage alive. No, I think the Alpha people must really want to communicate with humans. This is a task assigned to these remnants by the entire civilization, and will not be influenced by their personal feelings, Kaylan suddenly said decisively. Why are you so sure? Hound looked at Kaylan with confusion and frowned. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 767. Is it because of those Chinese characters found by the 776 Special Forces team in the wreckage of Engine 92? Miss Soma, who had been sitting quietly next to Kaylan and listened without expressing much opinions, suddenly said. Well, it is precisely because of the appearance of these Chinese characters that I suspect that the Alpha civilization had made contact with the Earth civilization before the Ark arrived in the galaxy where the Alpha star is located. I even suspect that the China Heavy Industries group had disintegrated as early as the Old Era, participated in the construction project of these engines, Kaylan said solemnly. How is this possible? Human civilization helps Alpha build engines. Chi Hanfan, who had just been released from prison, shook his head repeatedly and said, do you know how outrageous this sounds? It's like hiring a human engineer to it's like chimpanzees from the virgin forest coming to help build rockets. Then how do you explain that there is an etched inscription of China Heavy Industry on the metal plate on the wall inside the engine wreckage? Kaylan asked rhetorically. Chi Hanfan was immediately speechless. Kaylan, actually you made a mistake just now. Leighton suddenly stood up and moved his shoulders and arms of the mechanical prosthetic part. Actually, Huaxia Heavy Industries has not disintegrated. The most important technical resources were transferred to ARC's database, and all the elite backbones were taken away. The Huaxia Heavy Industries left on the Earth is just an empty shell. There is nothing wrong with saying it has disintegrated. It exists in name only. Chi Hanfeng glanced at Leighton and then spoke. Is it possible that the people who stayed on the Earth built a second Ark, and then during the interstellar voyage, this second Ark encountered some adventure, which caused the humans on this ship to acquire technology that far exceeds that of the Earth civilization level, and found Alpha Planet before our group, and at that time, Alpha civilization had not disappeared from the planet? Leighton's breathing was a little rapid. This possibility is too small. After the Ark set sail, the time left for the people on the Earth will not exceed 100 years. If you imagine the Earth after the Ark leaves, it will be a planet where resources are exhausted, order collapses. On a planet where humans hate each other and kill each other, the chosen emperor takes away the most precious wealth of human civilization, leaving only a devastated world for the abandoned. The seeds of despair, hatred, and madness are in the hearts of those who remain. Taking root, sprouting, and gradually spreading, under those circumstances, let alone building a second Ark, even if you want to build a spacecraft that can leave the solar system, I think it is impossible, Kaylan said. He had put forward this hypothesis when watching the Mutuo video. At that time, he even speculated whether these engine wreckage might belong to the second Ark. But the fact is that the people left on the Earth, except for the first batch of people who boarded engineering ships and resource collection ships and escaped from the solar system through the residual energy of the accelerator, commonly known as the Stargate. The remaining people have lost the chance to escape their home planet forever. But we don't rule out the possibility of a miracle happening. Layton raised his voice a little. What if the remaining people recognize the reality and unite together? Just like, the miracle of Axis. He searched his mind for a long time, but couldn't find a suitable metaphor, so he finally came up with a fictional animation plot. That's just animation. Such a miracle cannot exist in reality. What Kaylan didn't expect was that Major Chi Hanfan, who had always been serious and rigid, had actually seen this work. How is it impossible? If it weren't for the unity of mankind, then even the first Ark would not have been built, Layton said. The existence of Noah's Ark itself is a miracle, so why can't this kind of miracle happen a second time, just because those people on Earth are abandoned children? But it doesn't make sense in terms of time. Hound stood up and patted the agitated Layton on the shoulder. Our Ark has been drifting in the universe for 900 years. During this time, for the people on the Ark, it is extremely long, but for the history of Alpha civilization, it is just a passing moment. Even if the people left on the Earth only took a few years to build the second Ark and arrive at the Alpha planet first, the scenes we see will not be much different from ours. Alpha civilization has disappeared for at least tens of thousands of years, and those engine remains were obviously not built within 900 years. As Kaylan spoke, he suddenly realized something was wrong, and he raised his head and met Layton's eyes. Natural wormhole, the two shouted in unison. What natural wormhole? You mean, the natural wormhole at the cantilever of Orion that the Ark passed through in the 499th year of the new era? The old dog couldn't help but widen his eyes. Yes, it is precisely because of passing through this wormhole that we are here now. Otherwise, with the power of Noah's Ark itself, it would be impossible to cross such a vast star field in 900 years. No, with this wormhole, we may still be in a drifting era of cold darkness and shortage of supplies, or it may have died in a corner of the universe. Kaylan nodded, but the flow of time in the wormhole is abnormal. The 1 second we feel, to the space and time outside the wormhole, may be 1 year, 10 years, or even 100 years. If we follow the time on Earth, when we land on Alpha, the year of the star may not be the 900th year of the new era, but the who knows how many thousands of years of the new era. I think so too. With the existence of wormholes, any bugs in the timeline can be ignored, Layton agreed. It may exist, but this possibility is too coincidental. It would take countless coincidences to come together to have even a slight chance of happening. Chi Hanfan sighed, but besides that, I also found there is a better reason to explain what you saw. Perhaps you can only find the answer by going to the Grey Mist Forest. He turned his head and glanced at Valentina with some worry. He knew that Valentina's name must be on the list for this operation. In fact, Chi Hanfan did not want Valentina to participate in this mission, but he couldn't say these words. Kaylan, have you ever thought about a possibility? The person who spoke was 33, the Mutuo video you saw was forged by the undead crew. What's the point of them faking this? I don't know, I just feel suspicious. Even the crew members who are on your side are not willing to reveal those secrets to you. Why would that Afterota take you to the core mastermind to watch that episode? The images, her motives are elusive. PS Axis Miracle comes from Mobile Suit Gundam, Char's counterattack. It is roughly about how humans abandon their prejudices and understand each other, which ultimately triggers a miracle and saves the Earth. The specific description will take up too much space, so here it is, no more writing. Interested readers can search it on Baidu. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 768. If she is trying to lure you to the grey mist forest. The Hound hammered his palms hard several times. Maybe this bitch is the mole you have been looking for. Maybe. Even the information you found was specially arranged by others. But if Aphrodite wants to kill Kaylan, there is no need for her to lead Kaylan to the grey mist forest, right? Layton asked doubtfully. You don't understand this. This trick is called borrowing a knife to kill. Borrow the knife from the grey fog forest to kill Kaylan, and if we trace it, there won't be any loopholes. The intelligence from the grey fog forest is Kaylan. Lan found out by himself that the decision to go to the grey mist forest was also Ian's own decision. That Afterota was nothing more than a goodwill answer to Ian's few questions and played a video for him about the grey mist. It's just a completely unrelated video of the forest. If Kaylan really died in the grey mist forest, she could easily have killed herself, Hound said. The Hound looked around at the other people in the room, raised his head and drank the beer in his hand, and said, of course, I am just making a hypothesis, but anyway, Kaylan, since you want to deal with this kind of disagreement, when dealing with old silver coins that have lived for hundreds of years, it's best to be careful. Old dog, do you mean to just let Kaylan stabilize the current situation? Layton muttered. The problem is, a member of the Undead Crew Association has been assassinated, and the person who was assassinated was still on Ian's side. On Ian's side, who knows who the murderer's next target will be? Is there a direct relationship between uncovering the mole and exploring the grey mist forest? The Hound rolled his eyes at Layton with some dissatisfaction. Is it true that all you have in your mind is engine oil? But all the clues have been broken, and I can't find a better way to break the situation. Kaylan propped his elbows on his knees and put his hands on his chin. My intuition tells me that there is no way to solve the problem with the mole. The relevant clues are hidden in the secrets they are unwilling to tell me. Intuition? You're not a girl. The Hound said here, subconsciously looking up at Sophia and Valentina, and smiled awkwardly. Of course, my words are not directed at you. Lesbian, but Kaylan, you have to think clearly. The place you plan to go to is the grey mist forest. If it is just a C-level B-level, even if it is an A-level ruin, I will not express any opinions, but this place is, so far, no one has successfully explored it. Is it worth taking such a big risk just for your so-called intuition? I think it's worth it. Kaylan nodded. He knew that this intuition was not actually intuition in the literal sense, but fragments leaked from the memory, fragments sealed deep in his mind. In the past, the experience has always shown Kaylan that these fragments are completely trustworthy. I know that the risk of entering the grey mist forest is very high. The candidates for this operation are more refined than too many. Those who don't want to go can stay and help Sophia handle the internal affairs of ARC and the hunting group. I will not force it, Kaylan said to everyone in the room. Akira Asano and Ze Logo stood behind Kaylan without saying anything. They were the strongest supporters of Kaylan in the hunting group. Even if Kaylan now said that he would go to war with the undead crew, the two of them would not do anything. Don't hesitate to join his side. I'll go with you too. Valentina also stood up and walked towards Kaylan. Hey, Sai. Chi Hanfan's face twitched. His hand froze as soon as he raised it halfway. Finally, he slowly lowered it down, and his unspoken words were replaced by a helpless sigh. I'm quite interested in the things you described. 33 played with the flying blade in his hand. I also know that you need my power. Your team is still missing a doctor. Ivan raised his mechanical prosthetic leg. Since you all plan to go crazy with this guy, then I too. Hound was about to stand up, but Kaylan held his shoulders and pinned him down on the seat. The Hound has not undergone strengthening surgery. If the limit of human strength and physical strength is counted as 10 points, he is only 7 or 8 points at best. Facing Kaylan, who has at least 30 points or more, the Hound is completely unable to move. What do you mean? Kaylan. Old dog, you and Leighton, Zwilajitu, and Lokai, please don't go. Kaylan said softly, you are right, this operation is very dangerous, even if Zlugo now, she can't take care of everyone. The Hound was silent for a full half-minute, and then nodded with some hesitation. I understand what you mean, with the current strength of us, we are indeed a hindrance to you. I am not the kind of person who wants to save face. You stubborn old man, you know it's for our own good that you don't let us go. But at least, you have to leave the logistics task to your own people who are trustworthy like us, right? Old dog, I have a more important task for you. Kaylan patted his shoulder and pulled him up. What mission? Do you still remember the exploration operation inside Yagunakotaur? Although it was previously shelved due to the war in the Bronze City, I restarted it not long ago. That guy Yayan also came out of his sadness and took it with him. All the remaining men of the Ya family are stationed on Yagunaktor. According to the secret report that just came in yesterday, they discovered 3 new plots of land. Are you planning to put me in charge of things over there? Well, the deeper Yagunaktor's exploration progresses, the more trump cards we have in our hands. Assuming that the undead crew is really brewing a conspiracy, the only way we can use it to compete with them is, there is only this ancient battleship. Why did you say that? Hound's face suddenly changed. Did your intuition tell you something again? I'm not sure. Kaylan shook his head thoughtfully. Do you think that the secrets hidden in the Grey Mist Forest may lead to a break between you and other members of the undead crew? It's always good to be fully prepared, Kaylan said. Faced with anything, I would rather prepare the worst-case scenario in advance than let things develop beyond my expectations. Understood, we will speed up the progress here. Hound nodded. You also have to be more careful. If it is really impossible, don't bite the bullet and continue. If it really doesn't work, go back and let's think about it together. Method. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chenmi-san. Chapter 769. Then it's decided. Me, Zlugo, Asano Akira, Valentina, 33 and Ivan will form an expedition team of 6 of us and go to the Grey Mist Forest. Laugo, Leighton, and the rest of the people will go Yagunaktor, meet up with Yayan. As for Zofia, you stay at the Silver Building. If necessary, make sure your own safety is the highest priority. Kaylan glanced at the watch on his wrist. We have to take action before the undead crew can react. I can only give you 12 hours of preparation time, is that okay? 12 hours later. South 3rd District, Beretta Air Force Base. After watching the plane on which Hound and his companions disappeared from the horizon, Kaylan turned around and looked at the 5 people standing behind him. The door of another high-speed transport aircraft was wide open, and several ground crew members wearing engineering mechas were fixing the blasphemer mecha to the external pylon of the transport aircraft. The 10-meter-high blasphemer mecha could not fit at all. Without entering the cabin of this transport aircraft, it can only be mounted on an external pylon. You keep a straight face no matter what, relax, it's just a sea-level relic. Kaylan crossed his arms on his chest and said to the 5 people with a smile. Of course, he couldn't directly tell the undead crew that he was going to explore the Grey Mist Forest, although he knew that this matter could not be hidden from the crew for long, but as long as he entered the Grey Mist Forest before the undead crew could react, even if the crew wanted to, it was too late to stop them. On the surface, What Kaylan and the 6 of them want to explore is a cave ruins located on the edge of the Great Basin. The grade of this ruins is only C. The valuable relics were swept away by hunters more than 10 years ago. Like the Bronze City, is a relic that has been almost forgotten by people. However, according to recent drone reconnaissance reports, there seem to be traces of the activities of the remnants of the heretical sect near this ruins. According to the analysis of the Military and Security Bureau, this remnant group may have used this ruins as a hiding place. After all, the institutions in the ruins have been completely destroyed by professional hunters. There is no danger. From the two perspectives of sheltering from wind and rain and resisting indigenous creatures, this empty ruins can indeed be regarded as an excellent shelter. Using his own authority, Kaylan forged a small amount of evidence, which vaguely connected the remnants of the heretical sect of the Nova Chamber of Commerce and the remnants of the heretical sect hiding in the C-class ruins. Never die. From the perspective of the Crew Association, Ian's trip seemed to be to continue investigating the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce case. But in fact, after arriving at their destination, the 6 people will cross the entire Great Basin at the fastest speed and enter the Grey Mist Forest. Build the plank road openly and visit the warehouse secretly. Even Aya was kept in the dark about this matter. Before Kaylan set off, she called to ask Kaylan why she was not allowed to participate in the task of tracking down the remnants of the heretical sect, but Kaylan sent her directly to another place where a clue was discovered. Of course, this clue is also false. It is a suspicion array set up by Kaylan to confuse the members of the Undead Crew Association, and it is far away from the C-class ruins on the edge of the Great Basin. Kaylan wanted to create an illusion, pretending that his pursuit was completely misled and turned into the wrong direction. Pretending to be misled to mislead others, this scene was poorly performed and full of loopholes, but as long as Kaylan could be bought a day, the scene would be considered a success. Check the equipment one last time and then board the plane, Kaylan said to the 5 people. Leaning on the slightly shaking chair back, he looked through the porthole at the clouds below that kept passing by. In a daze, Kaylan suddenly had the illusion that he had returned to the first time he set up a transport plane with the hunting god hunting group. It was precisely because of the crash that they became companions who could depend on each other for life and death, but when the truth about his life experience was revealed bit by bit, Kaylan felt a strong sense of unreality. He is a replicator, a special replicator. In order to communicate with the Alpha civilization, the immortal crew will embed alpha human genes into human gene fragments as a symbiont. None of Ian's memories when he was young belonged to he, but implanted it into his brain through some means. Kaylan did not have too strong resistance to this. Probably because you have lived alone since you were a child and don't know who your real parents are, so you won't be as hard to accept it as those who have a happy family and a happy childhood, right? Looking back on those things now, Kaylan even feels as if a century is so far away, competing with other children for food and toys in public child care centers, secretly watching downloaded learning machines in boring cultural classes. He wrote novels in the novel, worked odd jobs in various places while attending hunter qualification examination training classes at his own expense, and then studied and recharged during his breaks. It turns out that these memories are all fictitious. Kaylan lowered his head and looked at his palms. His more than 20 years of life were just a memory loaded into his mind. In fact, he had just emerged from the cultivation cabin a few years ago, right? Which year did the real memory begin? Did it start when I graduated from compulsory education, or when I got my relic hunter's license? Why did the undead crew create themselves, but instead of keeping themselves in captivity, they silently watched themselves step into the profession of relic hunter? Aren't they worried that they will die in a corner of a certain ruins during a certain mission? In Ian's memory, he encountered at least a dozen fatal crises under the ruins. Could it be that these dozen crises were all fictitious memories? Or would the undead crew have another plan? No matter how they tried to commit suicide at that time, they would still have a way to pull themselves back from the brink of death? Perhaps the monitors installed by the undead crew are lurking among the hunters who entered the ruins with him. What about the old dog and the others? The plane crashed, falling into the depths of the glacier ruins, getting acquainted with old dog and others. Could this all be a script arranged by the undead crew? No. It's not like Laogo and the others acted like they were acting. They were companions worthy of his trust, not secret agents of the undead crew. Moreover, if Laogo and the others had a problem, their intuition would have already warned Kaylan, but after being together for so long, Kaylan had never noticed anything unusual. Besides, if there were hidden elements among them, then there would be no chance for his plane to take off. And he later joined the Undead Crew Club, which proved that things had developed beyond the original plans of the crew members. The chess pieces become chess players. Although he, as a chess player, is not qualified to play chess now, he has at least sat face to face with the chess player. The chessboard was shrouded in a thick layer of grey fog, just like the grey fog forest they were traveling to. What is the purpose of making his own people? This is what Kaylan wants to find out most. To be honest, what we are doing now reminds me of a famous saying in ancient China. Ivan's voice interrupted Ian's thoughts. It seems to have been said by the Confucian sage Confucius. Which sentence? Chao Wendao, it's time to die. Ivan raised his eyebrows. In order to get the truth, we have put our lives in your hands on this trip. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 770. The high-speed transport aircraft equipped with battleship-level thrusters is very fast. Even if it is equipped with such a big thing as the Blasphemer Mecha, it is still much faster than the Amran-class transport aircraft that Kaylan and the others boarded. It's also much more stable. In just 7 hours, this high-speed transport aircraft sent them to the edge of the Great Basin, 1 hour shorter than expected. Kaylan and others, who were accustomed to seeing hellish starts, felt a rare sense of relief. Saving an hour on the road meant that the hour earned in vain could be used for various emergencies. In terms of processing, there is no need to race against time for every step of the action as in the original plan. Arrived at the scheduled location 1 hour in advance, Kaylan raised his head, looked at the high-speed transport plane that took off vertically, and said, "There is more time than expected, but we still have to cross the Great Basin in 3 hours, before entering the grey mist forest. The undead crew may send people to intercept us at any time." 3 hours, as long as there are no obstacles on the road, it should be fine, 33 said, jumping into the passenger seat of the armored off-road vehicle. This armored off-road vehicle is the only vehicle they carry besides the Blasphemer Mecha. It is customized by the G Steel industry under the Soma Consortium. It has a full nano alloy frame and is powered by a quadruple crystallized engine. It can maintain a cruising speed of 300 km per hour on flat unpaved roads. If necessary, it can even fly with great force, relying on the rocket thrusters and folding gliders hidden in the chassis to fly for short distances. Flying at low altitude over a long distance, of course, these magical modifications were completed independently by Leighton and Chi Hanfan. If the engineers at Jishan Iron and Steel Industry knew that these two people had changed their favorite work to look like this, I don't know what kind of expression he will show. The short-distance flight function looks stupid, but it is definitely not useless. There are many fissures and rifts with unknown depths in the Great Basin, and the largest rift can even reach more than 50 meters. The Blasphemer Mecha, naturally you can jump over it with the help of thrusters and anti-gravity devices, but ordinary ground vehicles can only choose to take a detour when encountering this kind of terrain. For Kaylan and the others, taking a detour was a waste of time. If they wanted to cross the Great Basin within 3 hours, they could only choose the straightest route. Kaylan got into the cockpit. This armored off-road vehicle uses an independent cockpit similar to that of a mecha, and the driving method is almost the same as controlling a mecha. If it weren't for Valentina's need to drive the Blasphemer, it's not Ian's turn to take the driver's seat. "Are you all seated firmly?" Kaylan adjusted the inclination of the driver's seat to an angle between upright sitting and semi-lying, raised his hand to preliminarily debug all the devices in the cockpit, and then started the engine. Compared with the roar and vibration of a traditional engine, the crystallized engine is much quieter, but the moment Kaylan steps on the accelerator, he still feels a full sense of push. The armored off-road vehicle rushed out in an instant, and the blasphemer who used an air cushion to glide closely followed the side of the vehicle. Although the Great Basin is named Basin, it is actually a huge crater on Alpha Planet. The core located in the center of the crater has long been lost, leaving only a crater with a depth of more than 100,000 meters and a diameter of 20 many kilometers of inverted conical deep wells. The crossing route of Kaylan and others is actually the tangent line at the edge of this deep well. It spans about 850 kilometers. According to the cruising speed of the vehicle, they can pass through it in 3 hours. Of course, the premise is that there are no obstacles throughout the process. But anyone who knows something about the ecological environment of the Great Basin knows that this is almost impossible to do. Although the Great Basin is a barren land without any large-scale vegetation or water sources, and everywhere you look is a desolate scene of khaki and marl, there is no lack of traces of indigenous creatures in this place. At the beginning of the formation of the Great Basin, the meteorite from the distant universe slammed into the surface of Alpha Planet. While creating the super crater, it also incorporated some of the rare elements carried by the meteorite into fragments. Into this land. In the long years that followed, with the erosion of wind, sand, and rain, these meteorite fragments that were originally buried deep in the ground were gradually exposed on the surface of the basin. These rare elements with strong radiation must be kept away from humans. It is a deadly thing, but for some indigenous creatures on Alpha Planet, it is a necessity for growth and development. These meteorite fragments attracted a large number of indigenous creatures to eat the soil and gravel in the basin, and these indigenous creatures looking for radioactive materials in turn attracted a group of predators that preyed on them. In this way, a somewhat deformed, but very reasonable, ecosystem appeared in the Great Basin. However, these indigenous creatures attracted by radioactive materials will not live in the Great Basin for a long time. After all, there is nothing in this place except meteorite fragments and sand. Humans cannot live without eating and only rely on vitamin supplements. This is also the case for indigenous people. Creatures cannot rely on a few meteorite fragments in the sand to satisfy their hunger. It is for this reason that the ecosphere of the Great Basin has a strong seasonality. Just like the migration of migratory birds and fish on the Earth, those indigenous creatures will regularly come to the Great Basin to ingest the radioactive elements necessary for survival. At this time, the Great Basin will start to become lively. Based on this characteristic, experts on the ARC divided the ecological environment of the Great Basin into 2 stages, the active period and the dead period. However, at first it was called the active period and the quiet period, but later some scholars felt that it was more appropriate to use the word dead silence to describe the lifeless Great Basin, and this second term gradually became popular. Kyla, and replaced the first name, became the mainstream. Unfortunately, the period when Kaylan and the others chose to cross the Great Basin happened to be the active period. There is nothing that can be done about this. The alternation between the active period and the dead period in the Great Basin lasts for 3 months. Kaylan cannot wait until 3 months before taking action. By then, the undead crew should have already discovered the clues that he had found the Grey Mist Forest. If he wanted to sneak out again, I'm afraid it wouldn't be so easy. 5 kilometers ahead, there is an indigenous biome. While the off-road vehicle was moving forward at high speed, the released reconnaissance drone also followed up in the airspace above, transmitting the surrounding situation to the vehicle in real time. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Chen San. Chapter 771. It's a group of steel-backed one-horned rhinoceros. Although they are herbivores, they are the more violent ones among herbivores. Ivan, who was sitting in the back seat of the off-road vehicle, said as he looked at the footage from the drone. They are just on our path. If the off-road vehicle drives directly through them, these bad-tempered guys will definitely catch up. Although with the speed of the rhinoceros, it is impossible to catch up with Ian's off-road vehicle, but hundreds of rhinoceros, whose individual weight is comparable to that of elephants, are running at full speed in the open area. If you get up, the movement will be too loud, who knows what will be attracted. If a few predatory creatures are attracted, it may be possible to solve it through combat, but if ARC's all-weather reconnaissance drones deployed near the Great Basin are attracted, things will be in trouble. Although Kaylan and his team's off-road vehicles and blasphemer mechas have added anti-radar stealth coatings, this invisibility is not invisible in the physical sense like optical camouflage. If directly exposed to the visible light of the drone, if it's under the camera, it will still be discovered. Even if the undead crew will be too late to send people to stop them, they can still use long-range strikes to destroy their only way. Missiles and plasma can fly much faster than off-road vehicles. The operation across the Great Basin must be as fast as possible and as stealthy as possible. Is it possible to clear out all the steel-backed one-horned rhinos in 120 seconds without using long-range weapons? Kaylan asked in the communication channel. OK, Valentina responded immediately, and the blasphemer's mecha suddenly accelerated, overtaking the off-road vehicle, and glided away thinking ahead. Not long after, the figure of the blasphemer mecha appeared in the drone's screen. The steel-backed one-horned rhino, which was digging into the sand with its lips and teeth, immediately noticed the giant machine that appeared nearby. The objects raised their heads one after another and looked towards the blasphemer mecha. But before these steel-backed one-horned rhinoceros could react, the blasphemer mecha had already cut into the herd. The heavy-duty armor-piercing swordsman raised and lowered his sword, cutting off the two closest steel-backed one-horned rhino in half. The steel-backed rhinoceros has a thick layer of armor on its back, which is made up of multiple layers of composite cuticles and hardened grease. Its defensive power can even withstand a 0.5-inch caliber heavy machine gun within a distance of 100 meters. A direct shot, but in front of the blasphemer's heavy armor-piercing sword, there is almost no difference from the cream cake under the red-hot metal knife. The blasphemer leaned forward and charged forward. His heavy armor-piercing sword drew a sword light like a full moon, and three more steel-backed one-horned rhinoceroses were cut open. The corpses of these beasts did not even have time to spurt out blood. Has been carbonized by the energy shield wrapped around the blade. The rest of the steel-backed rhinoceros didn't react until this moment, but instead of rushing towards the blasphemer mecha, they turned around and ran away. Because they gathered too densely at the beginning, many rhinos were knocked to the ground by their own kind. After countless hooves trampled over the fallen rhino, these unlucky ones, the individual has completely lost its vitality. It seems that no matter how bad-tempered the beast is, it will run away when it encounters an enemy that it cannot fight against. 33 said in a teasing tone. It is the instinct of living things to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. Seeing this scene, Ivan was not too surprised. If our off-road vehicle just drives by them, then they will definitely catch up. But if we were to run rampant among these steel-backed one-horned rhinos with energy shields and crush them to death, they would choose to avoid them. Typical of bullying the weak and fearing the strong, 33 took out a piece of chewing gum from his pocket, threw it into his mouth, and chewed it hard twice. Actually, there is no difference between humans and beasts. From a biological macro perspective, that's right, Ivan nodded. Before human ancestors evolved wisdom, we were also a kind of beast. You see, these steel-backed rhinoceros are quite smart. They actually know how to escape in several directions. The mecha driven by the little girl is very fast, but in this way, these guys will be killed in 2 minutes. It shouldn't be possible to kill them all, right? 33 said while looking at the screen. Just drive away the steel-backed rhino on the advance route. Kaylan also noticed this and changed the original order. In just 30 seconds, more than 100 steel-backed one-horned rhinos were killed by the sword of the blasphemer mecha, and the remaining more than 100 steel-backed one-horned rhinos were divided into a dozen smaller groups. Scattered away, even if these escaped rhino attract other predators, it is difficult to create a large-scale beast tide. Chases like this can be seen everywhere in the wilderness of Alpha Planet. There is no need to worry about attracting Ark's attention. Hanging the heavy armor-piercing sword back on its back, the blasphemer mecha circled around the slaughterhouse filled with carcasses of the steel-backed one-horned rhinoceros, and then returned to the side of the off-road vehicle. "Sorry, I couldn't do it." Valentina's voice sounded in the communication channel. "It's not your fault. What I mean by clearing these steel-backed rhinos within 120 seconds is that these beasts will rush towards you after being enraged. Since they choose to escape, then the initial goal has been achieved, and it makes no difference whether we kill them all or not," Kaylan said. Valentina did not continue to speak, and the communication channel returned to silence again. The blasphemer mecha is not without long-range weapons. In addition to its own powerful small plasma cannon, Leighton and Chi Hanfan also added a large number of additional weapons to this mecha. This is a set of additional equipment named HWS Expansion Set by Leighton. The sharp-edged external armor almost completely hides the original characteristics of the blasphemer mecha. Without affecting the flexibility of the movable joints as much as possible, this external armor is equipped with a total of 20 different weapons. In the original words of that guy Leighton, anyway, the blasphemer mecha is so powerful and equipped with an anti-gravity device. Even if a 100-ton weapon is attached to it, its maneuverability can still completely destroy the Ark all mass-produced units. But before entering the Grey Fog Forest, it is best not to use these weapons to avoid being discovered by nearby drones or observation sites. The road is clear. Keep moving forward. Just when Kaylan was about to press the accelerator, a gunshot echoed very suddenly over the Great Basin. Although Kaylan couldn't hear the specific model of firearm, he was at least certain that the gunshot came from a large-caliber anti-material sniper rifle with a caliber of at least 0.5 inches. Besides them, there are other people active in the Great Basin. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Alien Relic Hunter. Author, Enchenmi-san. Chapter 772. The sound of this gunshot is the TAC-50 produced by Macmillan Firearms Company, which is an evergreen tree among anti-materiel sniper rifles. Although this gun has been officially retired from the Army in the 922nd year of the new era, due to it has excellent performance and has not been discontinued. Some snipers in the Army and mercenaries often purchase this kind of firearms in private names, and their holdings are quite large. 33 Russia Giajhan, who has many years of service experience, said, 0.5-inch caliber is very useful for dealing with small and medium-sized indigenous creatures. Coupled with more than a dozen special ammunition with different functions, it is enough to deal with various situations in small-scale battles. Kaylan, the famous name of the TAC-50 anti-materiel sniper rifle, has also heard of it. In the old era, it once set a record for the longest sniper distance of 3,500 meters. But now, it is one of the few firearms from the old era that can still be seen in the hands of the regular army. This also proves the performance of this weapon from the side. Compared with various new firearms, it may be as good as the excellent one. The word doesn't match it, but it is more stable and reliable. The source of the gunfire was due north of the advancing route, 27 kilometers away from us. Asano Akira quickly reported the location of the shooter. "Do you want to stop the car?" Ivan asked Kaylan. "It's not clear whether the other party is an enemy or a friend. Once we exchange fire with the other party, it will inevitably attract the attention of the Ark reconnaissance unit." Kaylan did not answer immediately, nor did he stop the car, but he slowed down the car slightly. "Speaking of which, the reason for our trip is to wipe out the remnants of the heretical sect, and the intelligence also said that there are signs of activities of the remnants of the heretical sect in this area. Could it be such a coincidence that we bumped into it? Right. 30 San spit out the chewing gum, wrapped it in aluminum foil candy wrapper, and stuffed it into a garbage bag hanging in the car. How good are the equipment of the remnants of the heretical sect? Ivan asked with some confusion. That's impossible to say. Over the past few decades, regular troops and mercenaries have lost at least 500 TAC-50 sniper rifles in the wilderness for various reasons. Even if these lost guns are damaged, you can make several complete guns by piecing them together with parts. This thing is not a precision sniper system that needs to be connected to a computer and an environmental monitoring device, and the requirements for care and maintenance are not that high. 33 explained. I wouldn't be surprised if the exiles could bring out a TAC-50. Besides, aren't the heretical sects connected with the top leaders of ARC? Not to mention the TAC-50, even if they have more advanced weapons and equipment, that's also normal. The Arezaka family, the Williams family, are all closely related to the heretical section. With the energy of these big families, it is not difficult to provide some weapons to the heretical sect believers in the wilderness. 33 He continued, what's more, even in the Supreme Undead Crew Association, there are inner ghosts. Our real enemy is actually never outside. Fortunately, we are in the wilderness. Kaylan shrugged and joked, if we were on the Ark, I would have to cover your mouth right now. You dare to say anything without risking your life. You yourself are a member of the Undead Crew Club, and I'm still afraid of a hammer. 33's tone sounded like a knife. Is it possible that you can still catch me and shoot me? You guys, stop talking. The shooter is so close to us. Should we just drive past him without caring about him? Ivan couldn't help but say. No rush, let's see who the other party is first. Ian's right hand dragged on the touch screen, and a new reconnaissance drone quickly took off from the roof of the car and flew towards the direction of the gunfire. But before the drone could reach that area, the TAC-50's gunfire rang out again. In addition to the sniper rifle, there were also sporadic gunshots from automatic weapons, Asano Akira said. At a distance of 20 kilometers, even the thunderous gunfire of the TAC-50 was greatly weakened. Like the gunfire of smaller caliber automatic weapons, in addition to professional sound collection equipment, only Asano Akira, only those with special abilities can hear it. Approximately how many guns are there? Ian's heart moved and he asked immediately. 25, no, it's 28. Akira Asano listened for a while and replied, the off-road vehicle did not stop, and the sound of the wheels and the ground friction was at least 100 decibels. It can be heard in such a noisy environment. He could distinguish the details of gunshots 20 kilometers away, and even 33 couldn't help but look at them. They seemed to be exchanging fire with each other. The next second, Asano Akira dropped another heavyweight news. How did you judge it? 33 couldn't help turning his head from the passenger seat and glanced at Asano Akira. The moment the TAC-50 sniper rifle fired, a gunshot suddenly interrupted Akira. Asano said, I think the gunman was hit by a sniper rifle. Just when 33 was still about to say something, the drone controlled by Kaylan finally flew over the location of the gunfight and transmitted back the captured scene. I saw 3 off-road vehicles forming a Z-shaped defensive position on the flat ground. Several men wearing assault jackets and light tactical helmets were relying on the off-road vehicles as a cover to pour firepower outside. The man using TAC-50 sniper is a woman. From time to time, she will poke the muzzle out of the gap in the vehicle and fire a shot without warning. A little further away, there was an off-road vehicle that rolled over on its side. Not far from the vehicle were several corpses dressed very similar to them. The identity of the guys who were fighting with these people was very obvious: tattered and dirty clothes, various violently modified homemade firearms, wasteland-style trucks covered with spikes, and 3 people wearing black robes. The guys who were cowering behind the crowd and dancing and not knowing what they were doing, obviously, this group of people was the target of Kaylan and the others, the remnants of the heretical sect operating near the Great Basin. These people, look at their clothes and vehicles, They don't look like exiles, 33 pondered, but they don't look like members of the military either, although several of them should have been in the army, definitely not an active military member. Ivan nodded and continued, it's not like a relic hunter. I have never seen a relic hunter carrying an anti-material sniper rifle. What use can that thing have in a relic? These more than 10 kilograms, wouldn't it be nice to replace the weight with just necessary supplies? Could they be explorers? But this is too unprofessional, isn't it? The Great Basin can be considered a medium to high-intensity radiation area, but these people don't even wear protective equipment. Is it possible that all of them are high-level transformers? P.S. Thanks to book friend 20200103215125109 for the 200 starting coins. Thank you LMXY for the 100 starting coins. Alien Relic Hunter author, and Chenmi-san. Chapter 773. Pay attention to the skid marks on the ground. Kaylan had stopped the car at this time. These people seem to have been chased into the Great Basin by the remnants of the heretical section. Why are the remnants of the heretic sect chasing these people? Ivan said with some confusion. Is it because these people discovered their hiding place and the heretical sect wants to kill people and silence them? Who knows? 33 shrugged and looked at Kaylan, who was sitting in the cockpit. It's up to you whether to intervene or not. But my suggestion is to do more than to do less. If you want to help them, if you do, it will not only waste time, but also increase the risk of exposure, which is not cost-effective no matter how you think about it. Including the female sniper, there were 5 people left in this group of unidentified people, and the remnants of the heretical sect that besieged them numbered as many as 100. Although not everyone among the 100 or so people has a gun, they still form an all-round suppression in terms of firepower. The defending side did not dare to show their heads to take aim. They could only stick their guns out of the bunker and shoot randomly, posing almost no threat to the people of the heretical section. Only the female sniper could knock down a person every time she fired. A member of a heretical sect. If she hadn't been there, this group of remnants of the heretical sect would have swarmed up and dragged these people out of the temporary defensive position built by the off-road vehicle. This sniper's strength is pretty good. 33 looked at the battle on the screen and nodded appreciatively. Every time this female sniper leans out, she controls her time within 2 seconds. She gets up, raises the gun, determines the target, aims, pulls the trigger, and retracts the bunker. This whole set of actions is done in one go. This is not only good for marksmanship and body. The law has very high requirements, and the test of courage is even greater than the first 2. After all, the opponent does not have the ability to observe the ballistic trajectory by stopping like Kaylan. No one knows whether the next time he leans forward to shoot, he will just hit a flying stray bullet. To be able to make a perfect shot in this situation, the psychological quality is definitely not ordinary. In comparison, the performance of the other men was much inferior. The offensive of the remnants of the heretical sect was quite professional. The few people at the front slowly advanced holding simple shields made of car doors, thin steel plates and wood. The people holding guns followed closely behind the shield soldiers, using the top of the shield and the gap between the shields. Shooting outwards. As for those shields transformed from car doors, they can directly place the gun against the car window to shoot. Behind the gunmen were the largest group of remnants of the heretical section. They were unkempt, poorly clothed, and poorly equipped. Many of them even held stones and sticks in their hands. Just a rusty knife or steel pipe. These people hunched over, dodging stray bullets flying from a distance, and followed the shield soldiers and gunners as they slowly moved forward. Whenever a gunner or shield soldier was knocked down by the sniper, someone among them would immediately step forward to take over, pick up the weapons of their dead companions, and maintain the original formation. This group of remnants of the heretical sect should have received systematic training for a period of time, 33 commented. Speaking of training, Kaylan couldn't help but think of the 2 instructors he captured in the Xinxing Chamber of Commerce. According to one of them, after joining the heretical sect, he was sent to train the heretical sects who were transformed from the exiles. Believers, could it be that these people were trained by him? With a random excuse, could it be possible that he could actually get it right and find the remnants of the gang who were connected to Xinxing Chamber of Commerce? What kind of bullshit luck is this? Let the drone get closer. Ivan pointed at the screen and said, "Look at the two people commanding the congregation from behind. They are wearing black robes. Could they be black bishops? After the death of the prophet, the black bishops have lost the ability to use the holy word. The threat they can now pose is not even as good as the container of the seed of corrosion. Speaking of which, it seems that there are not many remnants of this heretical section container. I see that the sniper has killed about 10 people, and none of the corpses has seeds of erosion crawling out," Kaylan said. "It's a good thing that there is no container. Otherwise, just a sudden change corrosion seed would be enough to kill these people. It would still need to be so complicated." 33 continued, "You are probably the privileged class. It doesn't feel like anything, but for ordinary people, active ammunition is not that easy to deal with." Ivan grabbed the gun bag placed next to the medical kit and asked, "Then do we want to intervene? If Kaylan and the others choose to turn a blind eye, it will only be a matter of time before these people are wiped out by the remnants of the heretic sect." The remnants of the heretical sect have already advanced to less than 100 meters away from the 3 off-road vehicles with the help of those simple shields. Although these shields it can't block anti-material sniper rifle fire, but it's more than enough to withstand stray bullets fired indiscriminately. The only one who could achieve the kill was the female sniper using the TAC-50 sniper rifle. Even if we ignore the ammunition reserves and the time of changing and reloading ammunition, assuming that she can fire a shot every 5 seconds without missing a shot, it will still take 10 minutes to kill all these 100 people. But in 2 or 3 minutes, when the shield array approaches the last 20 or 30 meters away from the off-road vehicle, the remnants of the heretical sect armed with melee weapons can directly launch a charge. With only the firepower of 5 people, they will be instantly overwhelmed by 10 times more enemies. This is under the premise that there is no container among the remnants of the heretical section. If there is a container of the seed of erosion among these hundreds of people, then as long as the sniper draws this container in a lottery, when will the battle end?" Kaylan was about to speak, but when his eyes moved to the overturned off-road vehicle, his pupils shrank violently. On the roof rack of this off-road vehicle, several logs were tightly tied with steel cables. Although the bark on the surface of these logs had been planed off, the unique light gray wood fibers suddenly this made Kaylan recognize the types of these logs. Misty perch. It's the fog perch that grows in the gray fog forest. Could it be that this group of people, this convoy, did they come out of the gray mist forest? "It seems we have a lot to do today," Kaylan sighed and said, "This group of unidentified guys should have been to the gray mist forest not long ago." "How did you know?" 33 was stunned for a moment and asked. Their attention was focused on the battlefield where the two sides were fighting, and they did not pay much attention to the off-road vehicle that was on its side. "The overturned car was carrying Wukimu," Kaylan explained.